If you're a massive overthinker or you would like to reach that elusive flow state that all the kids are raving about these days, but you're not sure how to get out of overthinking and into that flow state, I'm going to teach you that in 4 steps. This video is me just sharing with you a workshop that I've been invited to do at the Johann Kepler University in Linz some months ago, and I thought I would also share it on YouTube because it might be useful to some of you. So here's my presentation on overthinking, how to get from overthinking to flow states. Yeah, let me start it. So I would start the workshop by asking people, like putting someone on the spot and say, okay, you're my guinea pig. I'm going to prompt you now to say something funny right now. And what would you come up with if I said right now, without any warm-ups, without any warnings, say something funny? Do you feel that? Do you feel that like locking up sort of, oh God, that tightness, that I have to say something now that meets a certain requirement, like there's a certain filter that's being in place. Not many things are good enough for it. What can I come up with? You feel this tension in your head around your brain area. Basically, it starts tensing up because you're searching for something that's good enough. Now, that's exactly what I'm talking about. This is what overthinking feels like. So, yeah, let's move on. So, a bit about my story with overthinking and how I even realized that I was doing that. I was completely blocked when I was in high school. It was a really bad time for me because I wanted to socialize. I wanted to talk to people and talk to girls. I was feeling my hormones raging, and I saw people that I liked. I saw girls that I was attracted to and people that I wanted to be friends with. And I couldn't do any of it. I couldn't be friends with those people, and I couldn't talk to those girls at all. I, in fact, sometimes just stood there, like having initiated the conversation, having nothing else to say, having this blankness in my mind that was completely blocking me. And it was quite severe. Like it would last until I was basically, yeah, like in my 20s, it would still last, where I would go on dates or any sort of high pressure situation, and I would just feel this like emptiness, and I would really often have to apologize, like, oh my God, like I'm sorry, but I have nothing to say. My brain is completely empty, and I would just feel very bad about myself and tend to withdraw, mostly in social situations. But I would imagine this extends also to like having to give a presentation or any sort of high pressure situation. For me, it was mostly with wanting to talk to girls and wanting to make friends. Two things that they completely blocked me up. I was looking for the right thing to say, and in that looking, it just created a lot of tension of having to say the right thing, and then just all of the creativity, all of the options just disappearing from my mind. But it's not just that. Like I would also get stuck in my head somehow with a math problem. Like this was still in high school, right? And I would just stare at it for 5 hours. And I'm not exaggerating it because I timed this, because it depressed me so much and alarmed me so much that I actually timed myself how long I could stare and try to get into something, try to get into it without seeking distraction, just staring at, trying to get my brain into the right state. And it just still felt this blockage. Nothing would happen. So again, this is going to probably give you some tips, not just when it's about overthinking in social situations, but also when it's overthinking in work. You also want to get in a good flow with working, okay? So some of the tips I'm going to give you are also going to apply to that. I'm going to help you massively if you apply them. So then I moved, like in my 20s, I moved to a new city, and I wanted to socialize and make new friends. And again, I had this problem of I just stood around thinking, and this thinking, like I just missed all opportunities to get to know people, not just people I wanted to date, but also people I, could have had really good conversations with. But I just stood there and thought, look for the perfect thing to say. And later I would realize what the perfect thing to say was and curse myself. Maybe this was at night, lying in bed, cursing myself. I should have said this, I should have said that. But the thing, all that did was just create more pressure on myself to say the right thing in the next time something would pop up where I really cared about how a conversation went. So coming up later with the perfect thing to say, No bueno. So what are your experiences with overthinking? I would invite you now to kind of like go into your mind and like broaden this concept a bit, because maybe for you overthinking usually means, oh, I'm overthinking how to do my thesis, or I'm overthinking how to do this particular thing at work, or I'm overthinking what to say to on a date. But both of those things have a lot of in common, and there's more you can come up with where you can feel blocked. You can have like this really high bar of what should come out of you, and therefore nothing's coming out of you, but you keep looking, and that creates this overthinking pattern. So I didn't really understand much about this problem until I came across this book. This was recommended to me at a spiritual retreat I went to. And it's called Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler, Jamie Wheel. If you're into flow states, you've probably heard of them. It's a really good book. And they taught me a lot about what flow states are and what they are not, how to get them, how to get there, and also what's in the way of it. So highly recommended read. So they define in this book flow states as STER, so selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and richness. This is the opposite of being in your head, being overthinking. As selflessness basically means I finally get a break from thinking about myself. You kind of forget about yourself, and this is what people describe when they say, oh, when I do this work, I just completely, it absorbs me, and I sort of don't exist. Only what I'm doing exists, right? But this is, again, you find this in many different activities, but it's the forgetting about yourself which creates this sense of freedom. And it's also the timelessness. So timelessness basically means that time has no meaning. You could be doing something for hours and it feels like it flew by, or the inverse, time can be very distorted. You don't have like a regular, normal, everyday sense of time. And effortlessness basically means that even though you could be exerting a lot of effort, it doesn't feel like you're working very hard. It just sort of flows. So there's no effort, even though you could be physically straining yourself depending on what you're doing. You're definitely making an effort, but it doesn't feel like an effort, if that makes sense. And then there's richness. This is the richness of experience that comes when you are able to let yourself forget about yourself and become absorbed into what you're doing fully. And this creates a richness of experience. Certain sensory experiences become heightened. You feel more. It's almost like this, when the thinking about yourself and you in relation to the thing you're doing or what you're trying to accomplish, if you allow yourself to drop thinking about yourself and become fully absorbed in it, there's more space to experience what you're actually up to. So then the book names a few flow triggers, which I was very excited about, because now I'm finally getting to learn, okay, how do I get into a flow state, right? And so this is what they said. Flow states are very common in like very dangerous extreme sports situations. Now, this is a picture of Alex Honnold climbing a giant cliff without a rope. You would definitely be in a flow state in this situation, because you have to be. If you overthink this, you die, literally. And that's why it's such a potent flow trigger, is to do extreme sports. Okay. And this, of course, surfing is also, it's also dangerous, maybe a bit less dangerous than the previous example, but also surfing is a very, very potent, very reliable flow trigger. And surfing has been successful in helping PTSD, soldiers with PTSD, so war veterans with PTSD, helping them experience a flow state and laugh for the first time in like 10 or 20 years. I don't quite remember how it was phrased, but this was a study that was done, an experiment that was done. So very potent flow trigger. Surfing works on everybody. It's great. And there's also meditation. If you're good at meditation, it can really put you into a flow state quite easily. I have to say, some people are better with actually getting into a flow state with meditation than others. I also think some people are wired for it better than others, but meditation, if you can do it, really works. And sex is another one where it's easy to get into a flow state when having sex. Yes. So, yeah, this is a picture that was taken on Fuerteventura, me trying to meditate on a beach. It was mostly me just thinking, look at me meditating on a beach. I wasn't very good at meditation, but I tried it anyway because I was after this super elusive flow state. Same vacation, me trying to surf, really chasing those flow states. Surfing was hard. I didn't expect it to be this hard. I didn't really feel like I reached a lot of flow states. I was mostly stumbling, and yeah, it was embarrassing, but the picture looks really cool. So, there's that. So then what? Like, am I supposed to, if I want this flow state and I want this access on a daily basis, like, am I supposed to try to be having sex all the time? Like, trust me, I tried. I couldn't find enough people who were up for that to fill my entire day with it. And also it was very impractical. So again, you got my joke here. Like, these activities are potent flow triggers, but how do you build flow into your everyday? What is more practical? So that's what I'm going to discuss now. But not before I mention self-referential thoughts. I already mentioned forgetting about yourself. So self-referential thoughts are what you basically want to diminish or what you want to be silent in your mind when you want to achieve a flow state. And it's literally quite any thought that refers to you. So here's some examples. How am I doing? Am I doing well? Am I doing this well? If you're giving a presentation, how am I doing? Are they listening to me? Are they liking me? How am I doing? Is what I am saying good enough? They are probably judging me. So all these thoughts that have the you in there or the I in there, those are self-referential thoughts. And if you pay attention to how many of those you're having, you can already start to imagine what it would be like without those thoughts, and that would be pretty close to a flow state. So these thoughts live in the prefrontal cortex, or for short, the precortex, which is connected to the default mode network, which is a network in your brain, which is constantly concerned with monitoring you and where you begin and where you end and what you are and what your story is and how you define yourself and your ego and all of these things that have to do with the definition of you. And psychedelics turn this default mode network off, for example. And that also creates these altered states. So here's, without further ado, how to get into a flow state in 4 steps. If you apply these steps, I will guarantee you that you'll find huge benefit in it. And I do whenever I apply these steps. I'm quite often too lazy to, but it does work and it's not very difficult. When I'm in a high pressure situation, such as doing public speaking or a workshop like this, actually when I gave this workshop, I definitely applied this. So the first step is tune outwards. Excuse me. Tuning outwards. So focusing on what you're doing and what is happening around you without the you in it, right? Without the self-referential aspect. So if you're interacting with others, you could be focusing on how important it is that these people hear your message. Are they understanding what is being said? What are they needing to hear the most? Focus on them. Not are they judging you? Are they liking your presentation? It's more like, are they understanding it? What do they most need to hear? How important is it that they hear this message? You can see when you entertain these thoughts, you can feel your point of focus moving outwards, right? So that's tuning outwards. Focus on what is happening around you, participating in it without focusing back on yourself. And service is a really good frame of mind, like serving, focusing outward, what is needed, how can I serve? Second step is to believe that it's going to work out. So this is just a little bit of faith, right? And you could approach this from a spiritual perspective if you're so inclined. You don't have to, but believe that it's going to work out. I believe it's going to work out. The thing is, if they have that frame, everything could be built into that. Everything that happens on the way could be proof that it's going to be working out. Even though you misspeak like I did just now, even though you could be messing up something huge, Or, if you're doing work by yourself, you could be starting at the wrong end or starting completely backwards, or you could make a huge mistake that costs you a lot of time. But if you somehow reframe that and see, it's going to work out because I explored this. Now I know the right thing to do. It's going to work out. I misspoke, but it makes me seem more like a human. They like me more. See, it's going to work out. Whatever you can come up with to reinforce that belief that it's going to work out, whatever happens, right? Even if things happen that would normally sort of put you more into your head or make you more worried, just see everything as proof that it's going to work out. Third step is surrender control. So why do we surrender control? Because the most creative version of you comes out when your controlling, planning function has been turned off, I think. Shuts up, I said here. Yeah. So surrender control. And surrendering control doesn't mean that you don't do anything. Surrendering control means that you don't constantly check and monitor whether you're doing it right. It's another way to tune outwards, basically. Surrendering control means imagine that it's being done through you. You could approach this from a spiritual perspective and say, okay, God is doing it through me. I am just a vessel for God to, or whoever, right? To just kind of do it through me. I'm just going to open myself up for the work to be happening through me. And this is definitely how a lot of very talented artists and also very talented healers approach this. But you don't have to get all spiritual with it. You just have to imagine that something is taking control of you and doing it through you without you, as in your normal ego, constantly having to check whether everything is being done right. Just kind of trust your impulses, trust your perceptions, and go with the flow, surrender. I hope that makes sense, because that's sort of the way I can explain it. And the fourth is to have a plan, but also being willing to let go of the plan. So it doesn't mean that if you want to be in a flow state, that you have to completely improvise anything you're doing. It doesn't mean you have to completely improvise any social interaction, although that in social interactions, I would definitely recommend that. But you could still have a plan. You could still have something that you want to get out. You want something that you want to say. You could still have a list of bullet points for a presentation, and you could still have sort of a step-by-step to solve any sort of math problem, or have a step-by-step for your thesis that you're writing, whatever it is. Have a plan, but be willing to let go when you feel that push of inspiration, when you feel that flow coming through. So be willing to let go of the plan, and when the flow stops, just jump back into the plan, right? And this is a certain trust that you need as well, is to go beyond the plan where the flow takes you. And also the takes you, if you imagine the flow taking you, then you are being taken, which means you're not in control, you're surrendering. I think here was a video fragment that I'm not going to play now because it doesn't exist anymore. So what is the formula for flow? I've already given you the 4 steps, but the basic gist of it is that it's not about you, and so let go of control. That's flow. Is stop making it about you, basically. It's not easy, but that's what it is. And you can get better at that. I'm definitely doing it right now. I'm not thinking about, am I speaking well? I'm probably not. But also it allows my words to come out spontaneously, right? So I'm letting go of control. I'm saying whatever comes out. Here we go. So what if letting go is really hard? It is really hard, okay? So what if it's really hard? Here's some beginner tricks that you can use, which you definitely don't have to, but this is more of a tip. Nervousness is excitement without breath. Quote from somebody, don't know who, but nervousness and excitement are basically the same physiological state, which means that if you feel nervous, if you feel anxiety coming up, my throat could close and my mind could basically jam again. But also my heart is beating fast, I'm breathing fast. I could mindfuck myself into saying, oh, this is because I'm excited. And that will literally become true, because a little bit of excitement and a little bit of fear are so close that when you feel it, you can just say, oh, I'm really excited. That makes sense because this is exciting to do, right? And that will get you out of a jam so many times. It's gotten me out of a jam when I was on a date and I felt the nervousness come up. It's gotten me out of a jam during presentations. It's very versatile, right? So when you feel a bit of nervousness, say, I'm excited. And that makes sense that I'm excited because this is important and fun. Do with it what you will, really works. And I know they love me and they want me to succeed, right? Just a thought that can be really helpful, especially if you're talking to multiple people, maybe doing a presentation or whatever else. Like, I know they love me and they want me to succeed. If you have a bit of that paranoia in you that people are up, like you have the tendency of thinking people are out to get you or they want you to fail, just having that positive thought, I know they love me and they want me to succeed. Repeating that a couple of times in your mind can be really powerful to like stop worrying about yourself and tune outwards. Say the magic flow incantation. I'll come back to that in a second. I'll show you what that is. And overwhelm the prefrontal cortex with tasks it can't handle. So this is something that works a bit differently. It's sort of depending on the context of where you're trying to get into flow from overthinking. So if you're trying to get into a flow into social situations, this is the warm-up is basically to do a lot of small things and not have time to think about how to do them correctly, how to do the best version of them, how to say the best thing. And this could be if you're just at a party and you feel a bit of like overthinking coming up, like just saying hi to like 10 people in a row as like a warm-up. Like you definitely don't have time if you do that rapidly enough, like having all these little small talk conversations. You don't have time to do that perfectly and think about like, am I standing in the proper posture? Am I saying things in the right voice? You don't have time. So don't give yourself time. Like do things in a certain warm-up way where you don't have time to think about them too much. If you're working on something and you want to get into a flow state, it works a bit differently. I would say the translation there is to just start somewhere and like do little things. They don't have to overwhelm you so that you can't think anymore, because otherwise because obviously you need part of your brain to do this work. But still, the principle of like warming up by doing lots of little things, it's really easy to get into a flow state from already being warmed up, doing lots of little tasks around it, or just like the low-hanging fruit and just a lot of it. And at some point you just feel this flow coming and you've circumvented successfully the overthinking paralysis. Magic flow incantation. You can make your own version of this, but this is a short phrase. It's not a phrase. This is a short text, which I recommend saying to yourself, which is going to express and affirm in you the feeling of surrendering and letting go of control. So thank you for putting me exactly where I need to be. Right? This is the trust. Thank you for what you're grateful for today, right now. That part is improvised. I know I don't need control. I trust and I let go. Act through me and guide me. Surrender control. Where it best serves to go. Tune outwards. I know there is a plan which I can't comprehend. Letting go of control. I trust it will work out for the best and effortlessly see the next step. Now just try that. It's really good. Yes, and then I would end when this was a live workshop with like getting the same guinea pig and say something. You try it right now. Say something. There's nobody watching you. Just say something. You're just watching this video. Say something. And if your something is the word something, perfect. If it's something random like I want a bagel, perfect, right? And how different does that feel? Now there's no like, oh my God, it has to be something funny. It's just like, oh, what is there? What can I say? Anything. And that's much closer to what it feels like to have this effortlessness. Now, if you would have attended the live workshop with me, we would have done a lot of fun improv exercises. Improv comedy is also a very potent flow trigger, which is why it's so fun to do that in a workshop. Highly recommend that in general. So thank you for watching or listening. And I hope this video helped you to get out of overthinking. Comment down below what kind of overthinking you're trying to get out of. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me. So thanks for helping me. See you in the next video.